Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing. And Jesse, we've got an interesting company that we're talking to today. This is Zooz Bikes, and they're a company, of course, that makes e-bikes. An exciting industry. Over 1 million bikes are going to be sold in the US this year, we think. And it's a $14 billion industry. And we're going to find out from Zooz what it's all about. All right, we're joined today by Chris Zahner. He's the CEO and co-founder of Zooz Bikes. Chris, thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, we've got 3 of your bikes here in the studios, and we are so excited about them. They look really good. Please tell us a little bit about Zooz.
Well, it was a happy accident at the beginning. I am a lifelong builder of things with motors and wheels, and I have my little garage, had a little garage workshop in Chicago where I was living at the time, and I needed a way to get around Chicago better. Chicago has notoriously slow traffic. My apartment was 2.1 miles away from my workshop, and if it was 5:45 on a Friday, it could take 45 minutes to get there. And at first I thought I was going to build myself another motorcycle, something like a Grom. I custom built several motorcycles, so I was definitely going to build it myself. And then started noticing some e-bike things. And the thing that really drew my attention was moving the hub to the wheel. And there's pros and cons for that. But what really struck my imagination is you can totally change the shape and basically the assemblage of a motorcycle. I guess there's a sort of a designer tinge to my outlook on motors and wheels. And so that intrigued me, and I bought a bunch of parts to build a motorcycle primarily to solve my problem. And in the first 50 feet, it was like an epiphany. I said, yes, this has to happen. So I actually have a bunch of video that I can send you of that first bike. In fact, like the very first rotations of the rear wheel. And there's plenty wrong with it. I really was just making kind of like a test mule to see if the stuff actually worked or how it performed more specifically. And then I built a second bike to correct all of those issues, mainly geometrical. And I was posting the stuff on Instagram like I did any of my other stuff. And a friend of mine, Pete, caught on to what I was doing and encouraged me, pushed me. And a few months later, we kind of did the spit in our hands, shook on it, like, let's get this ball rolling. And then the rest was history.
What was it about that first electric bike that made you go, aha? Because it sounds like you had that moment.
Yeah, in the first 50 feet. Silent torque. That was the aha moment. It was really just the stealthiness of it. I have been riding motorcycles for a long time. I had several motorcycles in that garage. I still have most of those. And it was not really a motorcycle-friendly place. And like I said, the traffic was just not fun for riding a motorcycle in Chicago. And you have to go so far away to get to any good riding. I wanted that fixed every single day. And parking lots, alleyways, bike lanes, all of a sudden the topography of Chicago, downtown Chicago, was not bad. It was fantastic. And in the context of an e-bike, and that was just, I mean, like I started going and then I was like, let me hit this curb. Let me hit this. And I was like, okay, this is where we're going. And that was my interest. That's how I built the first, well, really the second iteration of that first bike, what I would really call like the 1.0. This very first one was kind of like 0.5 or beta or something. But that's the kind of bike I intended to build. And it's pretty much stuck. Our current product, that's pretty much what it is at the core, just a little bit more refined.
And so that would be the Urban Ultralight, and it's a beautiful looking bike. And I love the chrome. I love the design. It's gorgeous. So how did you go from in your garage? You welded that all together and then you put it all together, all the electronics, and then you started riding it?
Yeah. So the very first motorcycle I ever built in 2009, I did a full frame up build. I was in a Formula SAE program in college, no stranger to chassis design and fabrication, suspension, all that stuff. The very first bike I actually got like it was a Pacifica frame off of OfferUp for $20. And I had to widen the axle plates to accept the motor. It was a big motor, kind of like this one. And so it was a little bit of cut and weld, but it wasn't very much. Aside from after that, I started talking to factories that built chromoly steel frames. And so I sent them my measurements, and then I kind of modified it once it got here after I realized I wanted to change the packaging of the battery and the seat, switch to that double backbone design. And so I did several of the prototypings myself, and a few other little creative projects, including this one here. But since then, I mean, really at the beginning, when I got those parts, I went directly to the factory and said, I actually lied. I said that I'm a small company coming to market. I'd like to test your parts. And then all of a sudden, that kind of manifested itself into the truth.
Wait, so this was before you had a company? You went to the factories?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I was not intending to create a company. I was just trying to solve my own problem. My friend saw what I was doing. He said, make another one. And I made another one. And then he said, well, now make me one, and gave me $2,500. And then the rest was history. Lots of milestones came after that, but it was purely selfish. It was not to do this for anybody else.
So wait, you were calling up factories, lying to them, saying, hey, yeah, I'm a company. And you weren't. You were just a guy in his garage who was going to put together a bike for his friend for $2,500. And now you're selling bikes for, $2,500 to me and the rest of the world. So, I mean, I guess it wasn't that hard. You were already talking to the factories. What was that like? How did you find these factories? Would you just call up a phone number?
Alibaba, actually, that's how it started. And then you have to weed through a bunch of stuff, and some people just don't pay attention to you. Some are trading companies and not the actual factory. So I had figured some of this stuff out, a couple Google searches, how do you navigate in Alibaba? But sometimes there are real people, real factories on the other end of the phone. And so that's really how it started. We have a new manufacturing relationship. We've stepped up into the pro leagues at this point, but that's how it started. And it kind of can be done that way. There are pitfalls, many of which we stepped in along the way, but so far, no cataclysms yet.
That's really impressive, because the thought of trying to navigate that just seems daunting to me.
Just going through Alibaba the way that it's meant to be used, where I have no idea how it's meant to be used.
It's evolved into I want to say show. Can I say that? This is on the radio.
Yeah,
it can be a bit of a show. No doubt about that. But I was also I was a sales manager / product specialist at a large manufacturing company. And I don't know if that specifically lent itself, but you kind of know who you're looking for on the other end of the phone. And if you don't get it, you just keep looking.
Wow.
That's really impressive. So fast forward to today. I mean, the e-bike market is super exciting, right? I mean, people are starting to catch on here. I think I just saw statistics of like 1 million e-bikes are expected to be sold in the US. It's a $14 billion market. So this is like great timing on your behalf. But on the flip side, you got a lot of competition.
Yeah, it's definitely a noisy space. The growth is letting dollar signs roll into a lot of people's eyes. And that's okay. I mean, those can be headwinds and tailwinds. In the macro, it's a tailwind. For us, it's, there's noise, but we intentionally, from the very beginning, before the pandemic, before the demand for bicycles and e-bikes exploded, we intended to be distinct in our approach, distinct in our design, and stand out, because there wasn't anything that existed like it then, and still really isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say we review a lot of bikes, and this is a really distinct bike. I mean, just look where you put the battery. Like, I've never seen that done before, but it looks awesome. Mm-hmm. The seat feels awesome. It brings me back to my childhood, actually, and makes me want to be a kid again and ride the bike, like for different reasons than, say, a rad power bike, which is more like, utilitarian and just get me there. This seems like something I'd actually want to have more fun with. How has it been? What has your experience been like with customers so far?
Yeah, so it's been pretty much just like you described. It makes me feel like a kid again. It's comfortable. It feels good. Our bikes are, I know you guys have the bikes and you're sitting under about a foot of snow right now. And so I don't know how much actual riding you've done, but after you get like 50 miles, 75 miles, 100 miles on it, you're really going to see that these perform, they're fast. You can actually corner on them confidently at speed. The brakes really, really work. And the riding position, the ergo, is dialed in. Like, sure, it's a one-size-fits-all approach for this model at this moment. And we're going to have more offerings in the future. But it's a one-size-fits-most. It's comfortable. You can really ride on it for 30 miles and get off of it and not be tired and not be sore where you don't want to be sore. So all of that was considered, and that holds up after every test ride. Now, there's a lot of people that don't get it. A lot of people that, like, for example, in the comments section on our sponsored ads on Facebook, people that give it a quick glance on a screen this big and they think they've sized it up appropriately, and they certainly haven't.
And I mean, because I've gone through the experience of, I don't want to say baby's first e-bike, but, like the first e-bike I tried, 250 watt motor, and which was great. And I was like, wow, this is I've never biked like this before. Then you get on something with a little bit more power and you go, oh, okay. Like kind of what you're saying. And, I mean, I haven't tried out, as you said, we're under a foot of snow right now, but different e-bikes, from here and there. And it's just like, I think the kid again part comes back to power to weight ratio, because when you're a kid, you have a pretty high power to weight ratio. I don't think that like children understand that. I once saw a kid climb a mountain, and I'm like puffing and puffing up. I'm in college. Like I should be at the, peak of my performance. But, this little kid, he weighs like 30 pounds, and going up a mountain isn't that hard. And it's the same thing on a bicycle. When you got going as fast as you can as a kid, it felt great because you didn't weigh anything.
Boundless energy, and you weigh 55 pounds soaking wet. Absolutely. You're hitting the nail right on the head. And there's two kind of abstractions that I have to relate this experience in a kind of a meta approach. The first is you have that boundless energy as a kid, and you can propel yourself to a speed that is thrilling when you're a kid and not be distracted by the amount of effort you have to exert to get there. Even if you are, let's say you're a marathon runner, right? You're in like the best cardio shape in your life. Even those people, the Lance Armstrongs of the world, their level of thrill can't be achieved with their legs. And that's where we want it to be. And so I intended to build like a light motorcycle. It's a motorcycle that abides by the current rules that define it as a bicycle. That is intentional. And this is where I think the real fun is. You have the approachability of a bicycle, but the experience of a motorcycle. And so here I get into my other kind of meta point. If I tossed my friend Sunshine the keys to my motorcycle, who's ridden motorcycles his entire life for 30-something years, there's a kind of a apprehension, It's like taking your friend's wife out to dinner. You don't just do that. There's an understanding of how you're going to ride it, what you're going to do with it, all this other stuff. And that's if you're comfortable with a motorcycle. If you're not comfortable with a motorcycle, I'm not getting on that death machine, right? But a bicycle, everybody knows how to ride a bicycle, first of all. And it's approachable, it's fun, it's safe, it's in the good category. So I wanted to exploit this good, approachable category to kind of share the deep, dark secrets of motorcycling. And that's really where I started. That's where I think the end goal is. But right now we're still in phase one, which is launch a company with our minimum viable product, as it were.
So that's kind of why we're talking to you here on Disruptive Investing. And I know a lot of people watching might be like, why are we talking about e-bikes? Well, first of all, Jesse and I think this is disruptive. I mean, it doesn't seem like that to someone who doesn't understand it yet.
Right. But for all the reasons that you just mentioned, motorcyclist gets on an e-bike and goes, I love this and I want to start a company with it.
Right.
That should be setting off alarm bells in any investor's mind, because I know that a lot of people haven't tried an e-bike yet. Once you do, I think you'll catch the bug as well. It's just like, okay, this is all the fun and excitement of maybe a motorcycle, but like you're saying, it's it's but it's just a bicycle, officer, or you can tell your mom, don't worry, it's just an e-bike.
An e-bike is not an e-bike is not an e-bike. Geometry, power output, seating position, whether or not it has a throttle, and if you're going fast, does it have the adequate grip in the tires and grip on the brakes to stop you to the point where you feel comfortable going that fast? Do you feel comfortable going that fast into a turn? And that's really where the fun is at when you're a motorcyclist making turns, tickling the inertia. It's the same experience that you get when you're surfing, snowboarding, skateboarding, anything like that, where you're managing inertia, especially with your human body. That's what motorcycling is. It's not all like, gangs and breaking the law and stuff like that. It's great fun. And at this level, the barrier to entry is dramatically reduced.
And I got to say, I think something happened along the way with e-bikes where basically the bike companies and the idea of bikes kind of got a hold of it. And it was like, well, it still has to be a bike. And that's the part where I kind of lost interest.
Supposed to use my legs.
And let's talk about seat for a second.
Yeah,
because to me, the least fun part about a bike is usually the seat, which is this little, I don't know whose butt that is designed for, but it's not mine. And when I go for rides, it's like, I don't look forward to it.
The seats are designed for putting in power with your legs. And so, yeah, when I see an e-bike that has a traditional bike seat, it's just like, that's great if I run out of juice, which I don't plan on doing. That's not like why I have it. That's not why I bought an e-bike. I want to have that power. And yeah, so I really appreciate and I can see why you went with the seat design that you went for. It's very comfortable. It's not one size. It's not, I can scoot get a little stretch back here, and then come up and, put in some more power if I really need to. But yeah, I see that.
And then the second part is tires.
Yeah.
For the longest time, because if you made the tires smaller and smaller and smaller, you could make it, look more efficient. And it's like now with the motor, we can go back to a decent tire. Like
Right.
I love that you didn't go, like I love fat tire, but I love that you found this middle ground, which is just like it seems like the perfect size.
The tire size and the compound that we have on our bikes, I can go into specificity, but it's ideal. Every single part of the bike was considered. And that's one of the things, one of the features that is not in the feature category. And one of the struggles we have communicating the value of our bikes to potential customers and them seeing it in us. They say, there was a comment on one of our Facebook ads earlier today. It's like, let's strip everything off of the bike and charge double for it. Now, that's half true, but the other half that's not true is why they missed the point. This bike, this is the first offering, and we wanted to focus on one feature, a very refined, exciting ride. Nothing else. No cup holders, no mirrors, all this other stuff. Now, we use standard bicycle parts, which allows us to offer many different drivetrains, which we offer 3 different drivetrains on one model. It allows you to customize and add different parts that exist already in the market, and it simplifies the build process, both for us when we're manufacturing, but also if you have to maintain the thing. And all of that is an experience-rich feature that gets rid of all the nonsense like cup holders and streamers and stuff that doesn't really work well and definitely doesn't look good to begin with. So we focus all of our time on using great quality materials, making sure that the assembly process is perfect, that it's packed perfectly, and that everything works the way you should when you get it. And that is the real feature. And once you ride it, it's immediately obvious. If you look at it on a screen for 3 seconds, it's this big, you're probably not going to get it.
Okay, so I get people watching right now. They're like, okay, I get the disruptive part. I buy into that. But what's the investing part? And, well, we're talking to a startup company. This is a company that is now, I think you're looking for seed fund round. You're in a seed fund round.
We do have a seed fund round coming up. We don't have exact date or what we're looking for on that, aside from we're looking for specific investors that help us. We have a few strategic investments that we're making that were coming up, and we've been bootstrapping this the whole way. We've been starving ourselves, eating the proverbial ramen, and it's gone well. But we've got our manufacturing set up. We've got our supply chains dialed in perfectly. We've got our delivery and our customer service. Everything is pretty much set, but now we want to kick it into the next gear. And that's what's going to help us make those strategic investments. However, we don't want to just kind of open up the door. We want to bring in people that are going to bring more than just their money. We already have a great list of those people. We're open to more if they're the right people, but we know that you have a great audience and a bit of a community behind you that are EV passionaries. So we're here to talk to you guys, and it's always reinvigorating. Like, sure, if we've taken a little bit of investment money, early money, not very much comparatively, a very low amount. And I think we'll stick with a relatively low amount as long as we can.
Well, and that kind of is a good segue into, I think we're going to have Chris join us on our Now You Know Investor Club. That's what we have, like 1,800 folks on there now, where we get to talk to people like you in a more conversational environment where we get to talk about your company. And if there is a chance that you're looking for investors, it's a great opportunity for some of our crowd who already gets it, that knows that this is disruptive, to maybe join on board. So we're going to have Chris join us soon. So if you're interested in that, check out the link below. But talk to me, like, if you were giving a pitch right now to investors, I mean, why should I be interested as an investor in e-bikes and in your company in particular?
Well, we have good margins, and the haters will say, "Oh yeah, it's double charging." It's part of the process of building a brand, and we have an advisor board and experience in our founder group that has built brands from Burton snowboards to Skull Candy to Zero motorcycles. And so there's a lot that goes into that. And you say, okay, what am I paying for this brand? It's the same reason that you buy Nikes, because you know that you're going to get a quality experience, and people buy into brands the same way that they buy into Levi's. So that's where a lot of that goes. It goes into marketing. It goes into growth. It goes into planning for the future. But those margins are what help you get there. So first of all, the margins are good. Second of all, I think, is the vision that we have for the company. Right now, we have this one model, and we have a few more models coming that are part of this family. And that's going to satiate, I think, the next 3 to 5 years of what's going to be the e-bike craze. But you have to be prepared for what comes after that. And we can speculate, we can dream, we can do whatever we want on this channel, but the real vision is what comes after that. And that's something that requires some unpacking. There's no just one soundbite, nor do I just want to give it away. But I think that there is a grand future for the powered two-wheel in the near future in a way that it's never really experienced before. Ridership of two wheels has kind of been dwindling for the past several decades, especially on the powered side, motorcycles. Bicycles, I'm really just getting back into bicycles in the past few years. I'm cycling again, so I'm learning about that. But it's, again, been a kind of narrow-focused, niche-y environment. But now, because of the macro needs of the world at large, all of a sudden it's hyper relevant again. And that history is going to be written by all the players. And that was really the motivation for me to start this in the first place. Like, I'm a bit of a history buff. I'm a two-wheel buff. I know that there's a new coming chapter, and we want to add to that. We want to create that. And I think that's really our unreplicatable special sauce, as it were, in terms of where we want to go. The third rank part is, I think I already mentioned it, but we've got the apparatus in place. If we do nothing of what I just said, it's still going to make money. And that's probably what investors want to hear.
I got to say, there's this interesting point that I wouldn't have gotten if it hadn't been for the fact that we do this for a living and ride e-bikes a lot, where I would have looked at this bike and I would have said, oh, great, that's for 20-somethings. It's not for me. Now that I've ridden a lot of e-bikes, I'm actually itching for the snow to go away, because I know, I mean, you've practically lived on a couple of the e-bikes that we got that were exciting to you, because I guess here's my point. I can get my childhood back on this bike. Like, I spent literally from
What's
morning
that
till
worth to you?
exactly. Like I spent morning till night on a bike like this, except it wasn't electric, until my mom made me come home. Many nights I didn't come home on time because I was riding, down by the Charles River or whatever. With this, I'm in my 50s. Without an electric bike and without this kind of bike, I can't comfortably ride anymore. I can't have thrilling fun. With this bike, I can, which is, I think a lot of people haven't gotten it yet, and they'll only get it when they see me riding by with the smile plastered on my face, and they go, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, from my experience, I could hardly ride a bike at all when I was a kid. Not because I couldn't do it. It's just, the area that I lived in, too suburby, all the roads are a little bit too fast. And so I couldn't ride with traffic. I couldn't really ride against traffic. It was just too dangerous. Mom said you can only drive, to your friend's house and back. And really, one of my friends lived down the block from me, and I just couldn't make it because that street was too dangerous. Now, with an e-bike, I can get up to speeds where I'm pretty close to traffic, and I feel so much safer, not because I'm bigger or not because, speed brings safety, but just because I'm going the same speed as traffic. And all of a sudden that opens up enough doors to where I can go, okay, so I have to go a block on this street, but then I can get onto a side road, and then I can take a path in the middle of the woods. It's this last summer I've been on an e-bike, practically every waking moment. And it is everything you're saying. And I'm so glad that you feel that way and that you have a bike company. That makes me really confident in the fact that, like, you get it. You're not, I'll be honest, a lot of these Chinese companies who make and market and sell the bike, and it's like, I don't know if they've ever ridden a bike or if they get what I'm talking about or what biking looks like in China for them. But to me, it's this, again, getting your childhood back. It's this very freeing thing. I mean, I remember when I got my car, it didn't feel like I was free necessarily. I couldn't go exploring in the same way I can with an e-bike. So yeah, I'm very excited to hear your thoughts because they kind of echo mine as well.
Yeah, especially when I heard that Chicago became a different place for you once you saw this.
It changed the entire city in my perspective. And I was out on my bike. I would do, on average, let's call it 1.7 full battery drains a day, which means I went out for 2 rides almost every day, except for the days that I was only able to go out to 1. I went 2 miles at least every day to my garage and back, but I had 25 miles worth of range, and that only took 4. So you know what I did? I took the long way around. I explored my city. If you're on a regular bicycle, point A to point B, shortest distance, it's just in our nature. It's what you're going to do. But when you have that extra juice and you see the battery meter, like, I got extra time for fun. You're going to do a lot with that. I promise you.
Now, here's an exciting thing. If you're watching right now and you're like, whoa, this sounds kind of interesting to invest in. You mentioned something very interesting, Chris. You said we're looking for investors who can help us. And I think traditionally, when people think of investing, it's like, I'm going to buy stock in a company and I'm going to sit back and watch my dividends roll in. You don't think about helping the company. But here we're talking about with the startup, you're actually, if this company lets you in as an investor, you have to bring something to the table more than just your money sometimes. And that's actually can be an amazingly good thing. You can bring your experiences to actually help this company. Can you explain what you're talking about? What are you looking for in an investor?
Right. Are you looking for Mark Cuban? Because every time there's, every time I'm watching Shark Tank, which isn't very often, Mark Cuban goes, oh, okay, well, you know what? I'll give you $500,000 and I'll connect you with my people, and you're like, oh, Mark Cuban's going to connect me. Is that what you're looking for? Or are you looking for a welder?
So we already have a bit of that, actually. And if we ever roll into investor meetings or anything, we unpack all of that. We have an incredible advisory board. On the manufacturing side, 2 on the brand side, marketing at the highest levels. What does that mean? Come to the investor meeting and you'll find out. But we're looking, I mean, it could really be anything, whatever's clever, I would say, but it's got to be clever. It's got to fit. It's not just, oh yeah, you got trailers and you can haul our bikes around the country. Well, maybe, or maybe not. So I can't say exactly what we're looking for, but I'm always looking for the 2 birds, 1 stone scenario. maybe three birds if we're feeling lucky.
Well, Jesse, I want to wrap this up because I want to get Chris on that investor call as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff I want to kind of dive into with them. So, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to be talking to you really soon with our investor club. And I'm really excited to dive more into this company.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.